What is not a bullet you dodged, but a huge tactical nuke you dodged? My father-in-law was working on construction of a power plant and was scheduled work Sunday. Was a union pipe fitter. Saturday he got a call from another company asking him to run a job much closer to his house. Think 5-minute commute versus 50. So he accepted and didn't go to the power plant job Sunday. That day there was an explosion at the plant and people in the crew he was working with wound up getting killed. My wife and I were prepared to buy a nice riverfront property in 2019. But the owners, her dad and uncle, were dragging their feet. We had our down payment. We were approved for the mortgage. And we had even been living there paying rent. Then the river rose 30 feet, 10 meters and we had to evacuate. The water kept rising. The house was destroyed before we bought it. So we didn't buy it. 24 years old. Had a pesky sore on my tongue that was really bothering me. My boyfriend's dad was a dentist, so when I was over at his house one night I asked him to take a look. He recommended I go see an oral surgeon the next day for him to check it out. The next day I decided it was feeling better, so I tried to cancel my APPT, but my boyfriend's dad insisted I go. I went. And the oral surgeon pretty much diagnosed it as cancer on the spot. It was aggressive, and by the time of my surgery to remove it, it had already spread to multiple lymph nodes. They ended up removing over half my tongue, followed by chemo and radiation. Given how aggressive it was, I often think that if I had put off the doctor's visit any longer, I probably wouldn't have survived. I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary in January. On a road trip in college with 4 friends. We stopped halfway for a pit stop because I had explosive diarrhea and was getting more sick by the minute. Friends carried on to Vegas and left me with one of the guys who rented us a car to return home. The friends that carried on got into a rollover. 1 died. 2 will be injured for life. I had some chest pains one night and woke up my wife to tell her. She got a little scared that it might be a heart attack, and we agreed that I should go to the ER. The nurses were pretty sure it was a false alarm but would run an EKG as is common practice. In my head I was hoping that the chest pain would come back. Not to prove a heart attack, but so that we can find out what the chest pain was. The EKG was done by one veteran nurse and a new nurse. I was watching over their shoulders. Something was flashing on the screen that made both nurses look at each other with disbelief. They ran it again and one nurse went out to the station for help. The other stayed with me and very nicely told my wife and daughter to go back out to the waiting room. A few seconds later 5 to 6 more people came into the room slowly and calmly and began prepping me for something. It turns out that I was having my second heart attack that night in the ER. The doctors and nurses found an obstruction in my heart and were prepping me to have it cleared in a stent placed. When I got out of surgery, the doctor who placed the stent told me, "You probably picked the best time and place to have a heart attack. Right here in the ER." Edit. Thank you to everyone for the upvotes and awards. If anything, this has taught me not to take your health for granted and get yourself checked out if you're not feeling well. Edit number 2. The funny bullet I dodged during this event was that the doctor told me that when they put in the stent, they can go one of 2 ways. One entry point in the wrist and the other point is in your crotch. The male ER nurse had to prep the area just in case the wrist wasn't viable. Luckily for me, the wrist entry was successful. Walking to work in the winter. Halfway through a step forward under a skybridge when an icicle taller than me, 6 feet, and probably 2 feet around at the base crashes down *right in front of my nose. If my bus had been a half second earlier, if I had walked even a tiny bit faster pace, I would have been impaled from brains to balls. I was frozen in place for a minute, quietly surveying my near death. There was another pedestrian nearby who witnessed it, and the wide-eyed, ashen look on his face as he stared at me confirmed just how narrowly fortunate I was that day. What's a popular food or drink that you dislike? Over-the-top cupcakes that have way too much frosting. Literally, a simple cupcake with a little frosting will suffice. We're not on a bake-off TV show. Store-bought frosting. It could be packaged or on a cake or cupcake. It just tastes like it would be known in the state of California to cause reproductive harm. Seems like everyone here knows what ass tastes like, so my answer is ass. Energy drinks. I don't care that you like it, stop telling me. It's just my opinion. I think they're unnatural and unhealthy. Jell-O, hated it for as long as I can remember. Nothing really. I am the type of person who would eat leftovers that sat out overnight and will eat just about anything. Except for beets. Fuck beets. What's a toxic behavior that's considered socially acceptable? Pranking people disrespectfully. Trying to make people drink, smoke or drink, smoke more when they have firmly declined the offer. Verbally abusing minimum wage employees who don't make the rules. If I could change the laws tomorrow, I'd encourage businesses to ban pieces of garbage like these. Who can't operate in public? The Starbucks barista shouldn't have to pay for your shitty attitude. Burning yourself out for the hustle or the grind. Overworking yourself and then collectively judging others who don't do the same. Influencers, social media and photoshopping the hell out of their bodies. What makes absolutely no sense to you at all? Seems like half of the true crime shows I watch involve life insurance. What I don't understand is how the perpetrators convince themselves that being the beneficiary on a brand new life insurance policy and then having the insured turn up dead within days or weeks is not going to put you under a detective's microscope. Even more suspicious are the ones who immediately make the claim for payout within a day of the death. At least sit on it for a month or two and act like you're grieving. My first language was Spanish, which I learned at home. I learned English at school and with friends outside of school. In addition, German is spoken. Surprisingly, when I speak in my brain, it's always in English. When I pronounce them out loud, though, they come out in the correct language. How Bluetooth works. How the moon is in perfect rotation with the Earth to the point where we only see one side of the moon at all times no matter what. You can break a bone and it will heal on its own. But if you develop a little cavity, you must get it filled. Space. Look at the moon. Some days you can see Saturn or Jupiter out there. Look at the stars. You think about us. People on this rock in space all running around. We're floating in space on a rock. Spinning around. All together. One. And space is just so big. It's overwhelming. Really, really big. I can't even comprehend how big. It doesn't even make sense how big it is. What is your unpopular music opinion? Byzantine liturgical chant is one of the best music genres out there. 1. Every major genre has at least one artist that you can enjoy regardless of your distaste for the genre in general. 2. You're not a sheep for liking popular music. The person making comments from hearing what you like to listen to is the one spouting the same shit we've heard for years. Like different kinds of music does not mean that you are a poser. You can like AC/DC and Katy Perry at the same time. Most songs sound nice, but when you look at the lyrics, you'll be like, WTH? I like glam metal and disco. I don't understand why the hate for those genres, they're great. These Japanese all-girl metal bands? It's pretty decent to hear somebody put solos in their metal. At last.
Subscribe, my brothers.